So thank you for joining in another session with YellowSquash. Today we are going to talk about all important developmental disorders. There is a lot of cacophony, lot of noise, lot of arguments, lot of options that parents who are suffering these conditions for their children, they know what they are going through. आप सभी लोग you have tried many different kinds of therapies and treatments. You have tried allopathy, Ayurveda, and obviously almost all of you have gone through at some point of your life through different kinds of therapies. You have tried physical therapy, you have tried occupational therapy, you have tried ABA, and you have tried many others. So this is a common story with all parents. And this is something we have been doing, unfortunately, for the last 20, 30 years. Science has evolved, techniques have evolved, our understanding about these issues have evolved. There is new research happening every passing day. In fact, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, there is something which has been established and which is very, very important for people having these conditions with their children. Very important for you to know 50 biochemical pathways connecting our digestive system to our brain. And therefore, our digestive system plays a significantly important role in the development of the brain. Now, it has been established very recently by researchers. So the information may not be very commonplace with the next door, the best doctor that you probably have the potential to visit and you have been visiting. There have been an identification of 14 to 15 biochemical pathways which directly connect to the malfunctions which are happening in the brain, resulting into behavioral issues, hyperactivity, social anxiety, as well as communication related challenges that people are having. These children they are having. Along with this, there are many other things which are at the cutting edge of our understanding about this entire phenomena. So today we are joined with Dr. Ashwani Garg, so who has been taking part in treating, understanding these developmental issues for the past a little over 3 years, almost 4 years. He has worked with more than 27, 200 odd patients across many, many countries, 40 plus countries, having worked with things such as autism, ADHD, hyperactivity, learning disorders, seizures, and many more. So today, in this session, we are going to learn from none other than Dr. Ashwani about mitochondrial dysfunction and its connection with all of these developmental issues. So good evening. Welcome to you, Dr. Ashwani. How are you, sir?
Good evening, Ayush. Thank you so much. I'm very well. How are you?
So I hope your health is treating you well. There was a little bit of a cold.
Yes, I'm okay. Thank you.
All right. So, sir, we'll dive straight into it. You spend so much of time on these conditions with these children, with parents. It's not just the disease, not just the children that you have to treat, but it is also psychology of the parent and a lot of confusion that the parents are always grappled with. So they keep having or hearing a lot of buzzwords. They keep hearing about stem cell therapy and HBOT and many other these kind of techniques. And obviously, it is very, very confusing. Then all of a sudden there is a new word in the so-called, if we can say it or put it like that, in the market, mitochondrial dysfunction.
Right.
So for our audience who may not be medically well versed, how would you explain mitochondrial dysfunction, its connection with the developmental issues, sir?
Right. So first of all, I think it just newer understanding in the science, but basic remains same. So almost all functions in the body are dependent on the mitochondria. Now, brain cells has the highest number of mitochondria. Then comes the heart. Then comes the muscles. So everything and anything that has to happen in the body, it's a quality, quantity, and the number of mitochondria in each cell that would decide, right? So if all functions have been dependent on, then brain function certainly also is purely dependent on the quality, quantity, number of the mitochondria. So it's a basic fundamental unit which uses the energy, food, and converts into energy. And ultimately, they say 20% of the energy in the body is consumed by the brain. So that is why brain function is so much important, and thereby mitochondrial function is so much important. So if mitochondria is doing well, brain will do well. Now, uh, it is certainly, as science is progressing, lot of data is coming up, lot of research is happening, lot of data is coming up, that primarily most of the condition that a human society is going through is driven through mitochondrial dysfunction. And autism is also, or ASD is also, or ADHD is also a dysfunction in the mitochondria. Now, how do we, let's say, visually we can understand that mitochondria is compromised? One of the simplest, not the simplest, but more advanced test, but very obvious, it can tell us, is a functional imaging of the brain, which is a PET scan. Now, recent times, in the last 5-10 years, a lot of doctors, very renowned doctors around the globe, in India, has taken interest into this, and they have been doing PET scans for these children. Okay, now we have known this mitochondria is a problem which is established in literature, but from a common man's perspective, or from a parent perspective, uh, a PET scan can clearly demonstrate that a lot of these children, when we do a PET scan, we will realize some parts of the brain are metabolically not as functional as the other parts of the brain, right? So and core, in context to that, what part of the brain is not so metabolically active, we will also see that simultaneous there's a problem in the body. There could be a speech problem, there could be a communication problem, there could, even uttering of the word could be a problem, or let's say muscles are not so great. So likewise, it's very obvious. And fortunately enough that science is progressing, and that gives us a clue what is wrong, and certainly that paves the path. How do we even fix that?
So when we are talking about all of these different complex issues, so primarily, if one has to understand the entire spectrum, probably we would bucket the entire spectrum into three categories of issues. So there is communicability, which is definitely a challenge with many of these children. They may not utter a lot of words, they may not speak at all. If they do, they don't make a coherent sense out of it. They cannot build communication and have a conversation, so to speak. So communicability is definitely a challenge for a lot of children. Behavior, hyperactivity, having a sense of belongingness in the environment that they are subjected to, what is right, what is wrong, that level of subjectivity is not there,
Right.
and therefore socialization becomes a challenge. Social anxiety exists. So behavior is definitely a problem, communicability is a problem, and then this intellectual ability to grasp things, have focus, reciprocate a learning in a particular scenario to another scenario, these things, this is what parents by and large understand.
Right.
And I suppose when you or even us guys, we speak to different parents, these are the challenges that they speak of.
Right.
Now, when they hear this new term mitochondrial dysfunction, and when they try to connect the dots towards what they can see and observe and understand, are there certain signals that they can also understand as a parent, that if this is happening, then probably this is one of the areas that I should be looking into?
Right. So let's say speech delay is there, or there's a communication problem. As simple as, let's say, hypotonia is there. Okay, there's a swallowing difficulty in the child is there. Child feel fatigued very easily, or very common, which is these children frequently get unwell. They frequently get fever and they get sickness and all of that. Now that also means the mitochondria, even the immune system that requires the mitochondria to keep it active, that is compromised. So if speech communication, fatigability, hypotonia, which is very common, immune system dysregulation is there, these are all very simple and plain outcomes of a poor mitochondria or a mitochondrial dysfunction. So if a parent realizes that these common things, even swallowing difficulty, chewing difficulty, uh, not able to have a grip of the pencil or a pen, because the power generated through the mitochondria, energy generated through the mitochondria is not enough in them. So if these very basic things they can observe in the child and see these are not enough, that certainly means the mitochondria is not doing okay. And how do we very how do we, ascertain what we are saying? Now when we start doing the treatment to improve the mitochondria, all these aspects start getting better, not just the brain function. So that certainly means, mitochondria is there everywhere in the body, and certainly in the brain, mitochondria is impacted, immune system mitochondria is impacted, muscle mitochondria is impacted. So as we start fixing it, as we start working towards it, all aspects start getting better.
Right, sir. So good to know this, that there are certain things which people can understand, parents can understand, and get a clue of where they need to head, rather than just pretty much shooting in the dark. So one of the things which obviously comes to mind, if I put myself in the shoes of a parent, is that this is not something that if I were a parent, I have heard very commonly that one doctor, I mean, I have visited a number of doctors and specialists, and I trust them. He's my brother's friend and all that. So obviously, you have a little bit of trust on the person you can engage with and know of even personally. Even this is not a very common knowledge in terms of when we are looking at developmental issues, we need to look at mitochondria as well. So
Right.
how do you, what is the scientific evidence behind this? Some level of research, and what has the scientific community found out so far?
I, Ayush, in terms of the data, in terms of the scientific validation, there's enough data now. This just, if even we do a PubMed, simple PubMed search, autism mitochondria, ASD mitochondria, lower IQ and mitochondrial dysfunction, so much data is there. Now, how do we, how do we as a parent simply can very very simple biomarkers can help us get there. Now PET scan is the one simplest way. We get the PET scan, we'll get to know these are the parts of the brain which are hypometabolic in nature, which need support. And as we support, we will realize that child is getting better in terms of the brain function, of course. uh, Second, very very simple, this thing. Now when we work with children, many of them have already become diabetic. Now diabetes also is a mitochondrial disorder. Now their blood sugars can be high, their HbA1c can be high, or their insulin, fasting insulin could be high. This is a very very simple way to they say that mitochondria is compromised in the body. Or as simple as something called lactase dehydrogenase, LDH. If that number is high, that also can indirectly say that mitochondria is compromised. Or there's another test that we do which is called organic acid testing, where high lactate, high pyruvate is an indirect way to say that mitochondria is compromised. Or if mitochondrial nutrients are missing in the body, for example, lipoic acid is low in the test, for example, CoQ10 is low in the test, for example, carnitine in the test is low, that is again an indirect way to say that mitochondria is compromised. So organic acid testing, we can come to know. Blood testing, there are indirect markers, plus a PET scan can very very visually we can visualize that which parts of the brain are hypometabolic.
Awesome. So good to know this, sir. So there are some tests now. People are some of the people, they are aware of some methodologies which have been there in the last 5, 10 years or even 15 years, and they have recommended to some of the people who have been grappling with these issues with their children. They probably are aware of some of the tests or some indications of these tests, and they probably has spent a truckload of money, gotten all
Yes.
of these tests done from overseas,
Yes.
and still struggling with supplements and medication and treatment methodologies, because probably it is not very suited to an Indian body.
Right.
So when it comes to the ease of getting all of this executed, are there some tests available in the Indian market as well? And if yes, then what specific markers do they help us understand? And therefore, where do parents head from here on to
Right.
understand their child's condition better?
Right. So you're very, very right, Ayush, that even a lot of people have come to us. You and me have been speaking to a lot of them. They have done the testing in US, and but they have done the testing, but they could do it for 3 months, 6 months, but then it's a long journey. So that, and probably every step of the journey we have to keep re-looking at these markers, so it becomes even more expensive. You cannot do one time test and then fix the problem. On the journey, every 3 months, every 4 months, 6 months, you have to re-look at it, how much has improved. If not, then what more to be done, or if how much has improved and what more to be done. So we have sort of, in India, we have found those companies, or we have appropriated those tests which were there already in India, which are much much more affordable. So one of the organic acid tests that we do in India, it is, the name of the test is called NutriFit, which is a very very decent organic acid test. If we compare with the US test, is as good as that, or maybe a little less markers than the US, but uh, we can get the report even within 7 days of sending the test to them. So that is as good as the US one. Second, blood markers, uh, like I said. So blood testing is fairly even far more better, I think, even in the US. If we look at the companies in India, for example, Thyrocare, or for example, Metropolis, or there's so many companies in India doing a great testing in terms of blood work. So most of these companies would come home and take the sample, and within 48 hours, anybody can get a blood report. So those tests are very very easily to be done in India at a much affordable cost. And good part is we can repeat after 3 months, 4 months, so that we keep the check on the progress. Otherwise, if we don't repeat, then we are in again dark.
So again, related to these questions, first of all, my request to all the parents who are listening to us directly, if you have any questions, please type in the stream so that we can pick up those questions and discuss with Dr. Ashwini. So on your behalf, on parents' behalf, once we are aware of these markers and all that, and as you have shared that the journey of towards recovery is sort of very complex and lengthy. It's not a quick job. You don't have a diarrhea, you take a pill and it's over. It's a very
Yes.
layered and a very complex issue. And more so when we remain stuck towards mitochondrial dysfunction as a topic, it is also understood that a large part of the DNA of mitochondria itself is bacterial in nature. So that genetic understanding of mitochondria also could be a little limited. So in that sense, covering both these aspects, it being a very complex issue to tackle, and also there may not be a complete understanding on mitochondrial functions in general in the body. So in covering both these aspects together, how do we approach this problem, and what are the layers that we need to look into as we progress?
Okay, now it's a loaded question. Let me try addressing this. Uh, so just like there's a nuclear DNA, there's a DNA in the mitochondria. But mitochondrial DNA is more, uh, uh, very very, either it can get better or it can get worse, which is very very linked to the epigenetics. Now, epigenetics is simply the environment we are supposed to be keeping ourselves under, which is set by the nature. Because we are all humans, are animals of this earth. We have evolved here, right? So accordingly, our genetics are there. Even mitochondrial genetics is there. So we cannot change the genetics, nuclear genetics, nuclear genes certainly, but at least the mitochondrial function and mitochondrial genetics can be influenced largely by the epigenetics. So when we are helping and working with these children, first of all, we know for a fact today enough data and enough research has happened. What are the things which could damage the mitochondria, which could lead to a change in hydroplasmy in the mitochondria? What are those reasons? Okay, so first thing is, let's first understand from a parent's perspective. If they have to connect the dots for themselves, most of the time these children are not born with the problem. Rather, insult has happened which led to the regression. That means some insult leading to damage to the mitochondria, uh, and led to the regression. So one of the damage that even parents can correlate is a lot of screen time. Okay, so our body is meant in a way that when sun comes up, we get a lot of sun, which is a metabolic trigger, mitochondrial trigger for the body, which tells the body to start metabolism. As sun comes down, we get into darkness. This is where body and the mitochondria will repair. But then if we keep the child always in front of a screen, which is a screen which is a blue light emitting screen, plus it is connected to a wi-fi device, then there's a lot of direct insult happening to the mitochondria. So mitochondrial quality, mitochondrial number, and size of the mitochondria in each of the cells would reduce. As a consequence, we can see regression has happened after the exposure to a lot of these screens in the, especially in the COVID time. No, which is getting recognized at least, right? So that is one big problem. Second big problem, of course, the amount of radiation that has been emitted through Wi-Fi, through 4G, 5G, cellular networks, and all of that. So as the number of these artificial man-made devices emitting this radiation is increasing, we see the number of children suffering is also increasing. So that is a direct another insult on the mitochondria. Third is a hydration. If mitochondria has to function well, it has to be hydrated. And when we look at these children, most of them are dehydrated. Either they drink excess water or they don't drink enough water. So 80% of the body is water. Mitochondria also has to be hydrated for it to perform biochemically. So if that is the problem, then we have to fix it. Another one, like I said, and you also mentioned, mitochondria is also bacterial cell. Now, a lot of these children, they have chronic infections in the body, and the microbiome in the gut is also very, very disturbed, which means we don't have enough healthy microbes, or rather we have more pathogenic microbes. So if dysbiosis or infection in the gut is there, that will also directly affect the brain mitochondrial health as well. Then, of course, the deficiencies that we can test in these children. So they are low on proteins, fatty acids, CoQ10, lipoic acid, B vitamins, magnesium, zinc, selenium, phospholipids. All of these nutrients are very much required in the mitochondria. Then comes a role of toxicity. So if aluminium is there, mercury is there, lead is there, all of them are can poison the mitochondria. So first thing first is we have to start eliminating those things which can affect the mitochondria negatively. So first we have to stop the damage. We have to remove those things which has been causing the damage to the mitochondria in the brain, which is leading to regression or progression of the disease. Now, this is a progressive disease in most cases, we realize. Child is 3 years, the problem is less. As the child becomes more in age, the progress of the disease also happens. So this also signifies that if these underlying problems are increasing, damage on the mitochondria is increasing, and severity of the problem can increase. So first thing first is to start eliminating those things which could damage the mitochondria, right? Then next step comes in to start doing those things which can really start helping the mitochondria. Now, as simple as the lifestyle, a lot of sunlight is very, very important for mitochondria. Grounding can help the mitochondria. Hydration can help the mitochondria, as simple as that. Then comes the food, which has to be nutritious. So today food is more like filling the stomach. We don't even think that we are made of the food we eat. The brain cells and the mitochondria is made of the food that we eat. Now if we don't eat healthy enough, rather we are eating only white rice, we are eating only carbs, we are only eating the food which is far more complex than even we can digest it, then body doesn't get what it wants, then repair mechanisms are halted. So all the problems first we eliminate, then we start adding the right things, fixing the microbiota, eliminating those toxins. Then we do advanced things, advanced supplementation, advanced peptides, then further augment or strengthen this mitochondria, so that as the mitochondria gets better and better and better, abilities of the child will start getting better and better. So it's a long journey, eliminating the problem, and then supporting the body, allowing the body to repair its own mitochondria.
Awesome, sir. Thank you so much. So, if I make an attempt to summarize for our audience, so what we have understood is that when it comes to mitochondrial health and in general overall health of all of these children, most of the parents have observed that over a period regression happens, and this is a clear indication of mitochondrial function on the decline. So at the end of the day, we are talking about epigenetic factors, or in simple words, environmental factors, which have made the body become unhealthy over a period, and in
Yes.
turn mitochondria become unhealthy over a period.
Yes.
And since it doesn't really matter whether it is bacterial, whether we know fully about it, etc., or not, we definitely know a lot of contributing environmental factors which contribute towards the well-being of mitochondria in itself. So some of the impediments which are there in mitochondrial function could be emanating from as simple as a lot of nutritional deficiencies, which obviously can be tested. It could be because of microbiome imbalance or gut dysbiosis, which could be emanating because of a lot of parasitic function breeding inside the digestive tract and having an impact on the biochemical pathways. That could be another thing. There could be very simple things about something which is very, very observable. Is that children drinking too much of water or too less water, or trying to stay away from too loud noises or sunlight, or trying to go into sunlight, which is also an indication of something which the body is craving for or
Yes.
trying to stay away from. So all of these things could be an indication, and this is what we need to correct in a layered way. So we need to eliminate whatever is troubling the child. We need to add whatever is lacking in the child, and then we need to, by layer, there are different strategies which, once the child has recovered to a certain extent, we keep progressing, testing the child, and keep progressing towards its recovery. Awesome.
Absolutely.
So if I go further and try and understand, sir, since you have been advocating and treating children with all of these strategies over a period of last 3 to 4 years, something that you have observed, not just with your patients and children, how their recovery has been over a period, but something which is generally available, not just in India, but all over the world. So, with this methodology, what kind of recovery have you seen in your fraternity and with yourself as well?
So, like you said, Ayush, it is a complex and a multi-layered problem. Now, more than the possibility being created by the doctors or the science is the stickiness of the parent, how long they can hold on to. Now, in our experience, at least parents who can hold on to for year and a half or 2 years with the aggressive treatment that we have to do to eliminate what is the problem, to support what is required, if they stick on to it, I think majority. So majority, when I say regression cases, is almost 80-85% of the cases. Those, out of those, a large proportion of 80-85% again can absolutely come out of the problem. There's a large possibility, and this is happening. In India, we are doing. There are a few other doctors in India are doing similar kind of work, and of course, intensity of the work could be different by each doctor, or how much tools they deploy in their practice could be different. But at least baseline ways of doing things are similar. In US, a lot of work is happening. A lot of FM doctors, a lot of biomedical doctors, a lot of uh, naturopaths have been sort of working on this kind of treatment, and enough has been published. A lot of blogs have been written by them, because a lot of us are individuals, and we might not be able to publish a lot of papers because of the kind of work we do. We keep ourselves so busy, but at least a lot of articles with a lot of data that has been generated that can say that if a parent is willing to stick for a long enough time with all the ups and downs that happens during treatment, if they want to do it, the possibility is quite big. So, meanwhile, Ayush joins back. I can read the questions and I try to answer that. So, my baby is ADHD. So, ADHD is typically a high dopamine state, which means when we test these children, the dopamine metabolites keep high in them. So metabolite means dopamine should convert into norepinephrine. Dopamine is more of an activity neurotransmitter. Norepinephrine is more calming neurotransmitter. So ideally, the dopamine should raise and it should convert into norepinephrine. Now, in in these children with ADHD, one of the problem, of course, is a multifactorial. One of the main problem of the conversion is happening because the enzyme which is there to convert this dopamine to norepinephrine is blocked. And one of the reason of this blocking is essentially infections, especially Clostridia infection, can block that enzyme. So conversion becomes poor. Or any toxicity in the body can block this enzyme. So conversion become poor. So dopamine metabolites, dopamine keep high, and the child is becoming hyperactive. So that is the fundamental problem, along with other mitochondrial disorder and all of that. So if we start fixing the underlying problems, start eliminating infections from their body, then the dopamine to norepinephrine conversions smoothly happens and hyperactivity largely greatly can reduce. Another problem that we typically see, these children also have a heavy load of parasites in their body along with some other infections. That also can make the child very stubborn. That can also make the child very aggressive. That can also make the child not to listen and all of that, because they're in their own world. They're in their own troubles. So if we again start eliminating these underlying problems from the body, then normal physiology has to perform and the child has to move towards normalcy. These are not hardwired problem as it is assumed to be. It's always, science is always progressive. We are always learning, and new answers are coming to us. And of course, as practitioners, also we develop a lot of understanding about the problem and the solutioning around it. So it's a good time that we are in, and a lot of progress has happened in this world. And I'm sure for parents, they should not feel that it is something for forever that has happened to the child. A lot of good things can be done to the child. Ayush, if you're there. Okay. uh, Another question, Rose Neely, is my child is age 4 years, have behavioral issues. Specifically with me, he's not listening to me. Uh, does always opposite. So again, Rosie, there are two things we have to understand. Let's say child is not only listening to you, otherwise he's listening to everybody. That we can say maybe a purely a behavioral problem. Or he's outside is doing fantastic, in the house is just doing what he wants to do. Then we can say it's purely a behavioral problem or less of a biological problem. But if largely child is doing the same problem, he's not listening to you, not listening to anybody in the family, not listening to teachers, not listening to anybody in the neighborhood, let's say, okay, that means more than the behavior, it's more of a biological problem. There has to be a problem in the body which is making them like that. So if we test these children, we find what are the things which are not normal, which are sort of haywire. We start fixing them. That makes them more healthy, and that also brings a hormonal balance in these children. One of the hormone which is typically a big problem is a low oxytocin in them, and oxytocin also being produced by the microbiome in the body. So when we balance the microbiome, oxytocin gets better. As a consequence, sympathy and empathy of the child towards the parent, towards the mother, towards others also is improved. As a consequence, they connect more to the parents. They start making more friendships and relationships and all of that. So that oxytocin deficiency is a big problem, and getting a lot of sunlight and fixing the microbiome can really help with these things. Uh,
Next question, Dr. Manjusha about dyslexia.
yes, Dr. Manjula, ultimately, it's a, depending on the, see, dyslexia or autism or ADHD, these are more descriptive problem names of the problem, of the manifestation. Okay. But deep down is the mitochondria which is compromised. And why mitochondria is compromised? There could be 100 reasons, there could be 10 reasons, there could be 20 reasons. At the end of the day, like we have been discussing earlier, we need to find out, we need to test what are the imbalances in the body which is affecting the mitochondria. Thereby we start fixing them. As a consequence, mitochondria gets better, brain health gets better, and those manifestations, like those descriptions, start getting better, right? So this is very very simple actually, to find out. But then if we say, is there any one drug or any one mechanism for this label or one another mechanism for this label, probably we it's not even possible to develop such a drug or to have only one answer for one problem. It's typically a multifactorial underlying problem which has to be resolved.
Right. So, Miss Sabha is asking about her daughter who fails to react to name calling and pointing and lack of speech.
Right. So, Ayush, as we are discussing, name calling is problem, or cognition is something is a problem. Ultimately, some part of the brain is not fully functional. Okay. So, as long as we are able to improve the different parts of the brain which are metabolically hypofunction, then awareness of the child will also improve. The reaction time also of the child will also improve. The way they communicate will also improve. How much they can retain as a memory will also improve. Their IQ will also improve. So deep down, brain has to do so many functions. Okay, we don't have to worry about this function or that function. We just has to fix the organ which has to do these functions, right? So we just, if we start fixing those problems which is causing the dysfunction in the brain, then all of these things just naturally has to get better.
So, at the end of the day, to all parents, there are reasons behind all of these issues. If we are able to understand these issues, specific behavioral patterns could be very, very different from different children. But nonetheless, if there is anything anomalous, which is, jutting out of the normal completely, not acceptable by the society, or it's not according to the behavior which is considered normal, then there probably is something we should look deeper into. So there was another query from the parent about self-fitting with an ADHD child.
So again, like we have been discussing, I use this self-hitting, self-harming, self-biting, or biting others is a very very typical behavior. And one of the major reason that we have so far sort of come across or discovered is a heavy parasitic infection in the body. So why would a child would hit in the first place? It cannot be behavior, right? Just because we don't understand the problem, we call it a behavior. Now there's a tremendous pain in the body of the child. If you observe them, there's a lot of pain in the body. And why the pain is there? Because inflammation is there. Why the inflammation is there? One of the reason for inflammation could be a parasitic infection. So if you start reducing the parasitic load, self-hitting, self-biting, hitting others, pulling airs, a lot of these behaviors will get better.
Right. So, just highlighted another question. So, some of the parents obviously they hear about GAPS diet, they hear about gluten free, casein free. They do a lot of experiments on their own as well as regards diet. But diet, they see limited progress. They see some progress, but when they see a little bit of progress, they are even more disheartened that the diet did not make a sea change in their child or a fundamental change. So, what can be advocated to these parents?
Okay, now right diet is the baseline. Now, can we say baseline is enough? Maybe not. Once we implement the baseline, a good diet, then there are other things that we have to build on the top of it, right? We have to modulate the microbiota. We have to cleanse the heavy metals. We have to augment the mitochondria by using various ways. So it's a very complex process, and brain repair takes time, right? A lot of time it takes, but possibility is there.
Right. So I'll highlight another question which is there. It was about Dr. George syndrome, it seems. Um, so 13-year-old child not able to sit at a place for more than 3 minutes. So there's something wherein, again, we are talking about epigenetics or purely genetics here.
No, I'm not aware what is, see, uh, based on who has labeled these things, different names are being given. Okay. Now, these are just descriptions of the problem, but behind the description, there could be 10 problems or 20 problems or 100 problems. Now, if we break down a complex issue into small pieces, we may be able to solve, if there are 10 behavioral issues or 20 behavioral issues, we might be able to resolve 10 of them or 15 of them. What is purely genetic, we might not be able to completely fix it, but we should be able to uh, relieve some of the symptoms out of it, or reduce the severity of the problem.
I'll highlight another question. Lots of questions coming in, more than expected. Daughter with Down syndrome and a lot of behavioral changes recently, especially on the health side of things, rather than brain development and all. So eyesight has become weaker, behavior has changed, and there is something underlying. Probably they are seeing some sort of stress and anxiety with the child as well, what I'm sensing. So is there something which is on the decline health wise?
So, even a healthier child can get into trouble, similar trouble. A child with a genetic issue has a more predisposition to get into problem. But just because child has Down syndrome does not necessarily means they will have these problems. Again, if we fix the biology, we make the physiology better in that body, even in the presence of the Down syndrome, we will be able to bring a lot of health to them. Thereby, most of the things that a parent has mentioned, the eyesight can be improved, or anxiety can be improved, or speech can be improved, or muscle strength can be improved, or walking can be improved. A lot of these things can be improved.
Great. So somebody is asking about are there supplements that can be looked into on their own, for example?
Right. So now I don't want to, recommend that you start. See, again, it's a very you have to, if really sustainable, we have to bring the change. Let's say somebody does mitochondrial supplements. Carnitine is there, CoQ10 is there, D-ribose is there, fatty acids are there, plasmalogens are there, zinc, B vitamins are there. So many specialized supplements, so many basic things that they would help with the mitochondria. But we really has to get a sustainable outcome. Then we have to remove what is causing the damage. Let's say we put in some supplement, some repair happens, again damage happens. Then problem will get better and come back. Problem will get better and come back. So we really has to remove what is causing problem, and alongside we have to do the repair. Then we might be able to get a sustainable relief.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. So Suraj is asking about a 4-year child with some of the parameters he has given. I hope you are able to see that.
Yes,
So are these parameters problematic?
certainly. I think liver enzymes are haywire. Um, So it's not uncommon, first of all. No, most of the children that we work with, they have infections in the gut, and infections in the gut will poison the liver. As a consequence, the ability of the liver to detox will get suppressed or get compromised, and liver enzymes will keep high. So when we do a treatment, liver improvement, liver support is very very crucial that we do.
Okay. Um, So, when specifically somebody focuses upon learning issues, because going to the school and college and graduating and having jobs is one of the major factors or concerns for parents, which child obviously ADD, ADHD, and focus and many issues they are not able to do. So, Renika is asking from that perspective. So, learning issues specifically. So, would it also fall under mitochondrial dysfunction?
Right. So, like I said, uh, if we have to learn, whatever I'm reading, I should be able to comprehend that. I should be able to retain that. And when you ask me a question, I should process that information and give you a right answer relevant to the context to you. Right? Then that all depends on my brain health. If my brain health is good, I will be able to read, interpret, comprehend, retain it, and reply to the question asked to the context. So purely depends. It's a brain function. So straight away we are talking mitochondrial health in the brain, and if we certainly improve the health of the mitochondria in the brain, learning will certainly get much better.
Right. So I'll just take last two questions and we'll stop there. So Miss Preetham is asking about what triggers seizures and some of the things that the she's working upon, such as MCT oil, olive oil. So is this a step in the right direction? And how does one understand seizure?
Right. So again, at least again, seizures is also a complex problem. Like deep down, it's an inflammation in the brain. Now, inflammation in the brain could be triggered by multiple things. Now, what the parent has mentioned, the millets and olive oil and all of this, I think on the right track for sure. But then it's again a inflammation because of the heavy metals is one major part that we have seen with these children. They have a heavy load of lead, they have a heavy load of mercury, they might have a heavy load of aluminium in them, or maybe some certain things which we might not even have tested so far. Then, very, very surprisingly, they also have a heavy load of parasitic infections. The eosinophils will be very high most of the time. So, if we reduce these underlying problems from the body along with the right diet, then inflammation will come down, severity and the frequency of the seizures will also get better over a period of time.
Dr. Geetaram, the answer is Rajgir and dates. Yes, these are better options, but eggs may not be. That is something allergies and sensitivities need to be tested. Uh, Sir, I'll highlight Deepika Reddy's question as probably one of the last questions. So she's talking about twins, and probably hopefully you are able to see the question.
Yes, one of the trim has down. He's still 2.1. Still doesn't walk. No babbling. Uh, okay. So, like I said, Down syndrome does not mean the child should have speech problems. Down syndrome does not mean the child should have walking problems. So these are deep down. See, if I have to walk, my muscles has to be strong enough, and my brain to muscle coordination has to be good. For that, my mitochondria in the brain and in the muscle has to be good. Right. So again, it all boils down to the mitochondrial health. If we improve the mitochondria, both children, the child with Down syndrome will attain good health. Other one can get out of the problem.
So one parents has asked about the child being heavily unruly, being very angry and abusive and shouting and even beating and being absolutely out of control. Uh, so how would you react to this? Why does this
Right.
happen? And is there any link with all of these? At the end of the day, we are talking about many different kinds of behavioral patterns which are abnormal, so to speak, which is not accepted generally in society. Because these questions could be many, and there is no point answering each, and there is no different answer to all of these different behavioral patterns. But how does all of the roads connect to mitochondrial dysfunction?
So, like I think when you had some technical issues, I was telling most of these children are angry or unruly or aggressive. One of the reason is they're always under pain. Even no normal person, if you and me have a lot of pain in the body, and there's no resolution to it, I cannot tell to anybody that I have pain. What will happen to me? Okay. So, lot of time. Behind these behaviors is the poor biology or poor physiology. If we can fix those problems, then at least some settlement will happen. Another one is a hormonal imbalance in them, and one of them is oxytocin. And these children have low oxytocin, and one of the reason of low oxytocin is low sunlight exposure and poor microbiome. So if we change the lifestyle, we clean up the problems from the body, a lot of these things will settle down, and they do settle, that we see in our practice all the time.
Awesome. So this is it. Thank you so much, Dr. Ashwani, for taking time out, especially with not at the top of being at the top of your health. Uh, so happy recovery to you, and thank you for spending such a lovely time in addressing so many questions. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ayush. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.